Martin Popoff here from the Contrarians, back again with another episode of Who Invented Heavy Metal? And we are actually finally at the answer. The answer everybody's been saying in the comments, when they weren't saying, oh, well, you didn't mention Helter Skelter. You didn't mention All Day and All the Night. I mentioned all those little dribs and drabs along the way. We've got the ancient episodes. We've got all those 1960s albums that are part of the story. But we are at a milestone turning point in this series. The actual final answer, the album that invents heavy metal, and it is of course Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath. There you go. That's a Canadian copy of the album here. So why is this the album that invents heavy metal? Finally, after all of that lead up through the '60s. So this album emerges on Friday the 13th. It's a February 13th, 1970. The album was recorded in October 69. This is a band that came out of the British blues boom as a polka tuck blues band or earth kind of situation, and they become Black Sabbath. So the story here is that let's start with before we get into the music, sort of the graphics and the name and stuff. So it's named after the horror movie Black Sabbath. So right off the bat, we get an actual name of a band that sounds really evil and heavy. So we've got that. We've got a witch on the cover. The scary Keef photography here. You can get the whole entire story of this album in. I've got these two Black Sabbath books. Sabotage is the first one. So yeah, this one has the whole story of the album here. Where there's lots about Olav Viper, seeing the guys, meeting them, signing them, sort of thing. So why is this album so important? So I've always said that one of the big things about the invention of heavy metal is when the blues is excised from the situation. We've had too many albums so far that have either been accidental, loud, distorted garage rock, or the very, very heaviest end of the British blues boom, where you start to see some riffs being invented and stuff. Now, granted, I argue all the time that there's practically no blues in Black Sabbath, but I will grant you that there's a fair bit of blues still in the very first Black Sabbath album. So it isn't the greatest example. We're going to talk about some other albums from 1970 that are much more insistent and forward thinking in the invention of this new kind of music. But this is the first, and this is the album that we can pretty much plainly say invents heavy metal. So the idea is the band is excising the blues from their sound, and you definitely hear that in certain things on here. So let's just go through it. Black Sabbath is your absolute ground zero moment. This is there's nothing bluesy about this song at all. It uses the tritone, the devil's note, the Diablos in Musica. I remember when Tim Anderson and I got to go interview the entire band in person when they did the reunion. I still can picture just talking to Tony about inventing heavy metal, and he's sitting there in the hotel room in front of us. He goes, oh yeah, that happened because instead of going from here, hang on, let me get camera. Instead of going from here to here, I went from here to here. So that's the whole thing. That's the invention of heavy metal right there. So yeah, you get that with this song Black Sabbath. You get the invention of doom at the same time. It's a big doomy song. You get the bell, you get the rain, but you also get the fast part. People forget that. So that is another pretty forward thinking heavy metal non-bluesy part of this song. And Black Sabbath's being, remember, these early Vertigo bands were considered underground rock, acid rocks, progressive rock. And this album does fit the whole idea of that. And oddly, what it also fits, come to think of it. I've heard KK Downing say this recently, and I thought it was really cool when they were coming up with Rock-a-Rolla. He was saying, "Oh, we were playing progressive blues." He called it, right. This actually is progressive blues, but it's also, like I say, there's enough non-blues heavy stuff on here to call it the invention. You go into the Wizard, and same sort of thing. Besides there being harmonica in the song, this is essentially big stacked pancake power chords. It's not a blues song. It's also got evil lyrics. So that's kind of a cool thing as well. Sword and sorcery lyrics, if you don't want to call them evil, which leads to power metal kind of thing. Then you've got Wasp and Behind the Wall of Sleep, basically NIB. Yeah, this whole mess. That's all explained in the book as well. There's this idea that they had to start splitting up songs because of U.S. publishing rules to get more publishing out of the situation. But I guess you call it Behind the Wall of Sleep. Has got that the big sort of advancing chords situation. So that's cool. And when you get into NIB, this is a completely powerful modern heavy metal song. More so than pretty much anything Zeppelin had ever done up to this point. It's called Nativity in Black. It's got Lucifer in it, all that sort of stuff. So this is like a bona fide, absolutely. It's the precursor to Iron Man. It's the precursor to Smoke on the Water. It's just got those big heavy metal riffs, right? Now, when you get to side two of my Canadian copy, it's got Wicked World on it. And Wicked World is an interesting one where this is that one step forward from like How Many More Times and Dazed and Confused, where you've got or it's like a little bit like Whipping Post, right? Where you've got a blues boom kind of song, something that evokes the blues boom. Although, they wrote this is not a cover. That's the other problem with leading up to this. You got too many covers, right? It's got a little bit of a blues structure to it, but it is a really heavy song. And it is pretty menacing and dark sounding. So yeah, it applies as well. And then if you didn't get Wicked World, you got the Crow cover, Evil Woman, Don't You Play Those Games With Me. And that's there because it's owned by the same publishing people. Olav Viper's putting this all together, right? With Vertigo, right? Fontana, right? So this song, and it's an obscure song, but oddly enough, it's got a little bit in common with Wicked World in that it's got a tiny evocation of the blues as well, but it also has a little bit of a precursor to the heavy metal gallop to it as well. And it's heavy. It's a heavy enough arrangement. It's put together, the big pounding Bill Ward drums. So yeah, that's all there as well in that song. And then you get to Little Bit of Finger, Sleeping Village, and Warning. So Warning is an Ainsley Dunbar retaliation song, and it is it's the way Sabbath puts it together. It is a heavy enough blues, but it is the least imaginative thing on this entire album. And they didn't write it anyways. So it's more like a big blues jam. But Sleeping Village gives you another permutation of actual true heavy metal. So you've got Wicked World or Crow, you've got Sleeping Village, you've got Behind the Wall of Sleep, you've got NIB, The Wizard, and Black Sabbath. So that is a big deal to me when it comes to this entire series has been about the intentionality of actual albums, right? So, I've agonized over all of the ones leading up to this. How much of it was intentional towards this new kind of music or visionary or knowing or attempting or experimenting with this new kind of music? And it was usually less than half. But you add all of that up on here, and that is a lot of intentionality and coming up with something new that isn't blues based at all, or is just a little bit blues based, or is a little more than a little bit blues based, but still more heavy metal than Led Zeppelin's examples at doing this. So like I say, Black Sabbath, Wizard, Behind the Wall of Sleep, NIB, Wicked World, Evil Woman, or Sleeping Village. That's a lot on one single album. So there you go. This is the album that invents heavy metal. We haven't named everybody yet. Of course, Tony Iommi, the great Geezer Butler, coming up with these lyrics, these scary lyrics, right? That's a big part of heavy metal. This entire album is completely dark, and a lot of it's darker than dark. It's scary, it's evil, it's satanic, it's wizards, all that stuff. We've got the great Ozzy Osbourne on vocals, singing a little bit in a lower register, that kind of thing that you get from Steven Tyler on Aerosmith's first album, where you get Roger Daltrey on those early singles, right? evoking the great blues heroes, that sort of idea. And yeah, of course, Bill Ward, and the drumming on here is pounding, but he's kind of a jazzy guy, and it fits in with kind of the exploratory, like I say, progressive rock, progressive blues nature of this album, with all these combined songs or broken up depending on how you look at it, like Wasp, Behind the Wall of Sleep, basically NIB. On this copy says 944. A Bit of Finger, Sleeping Village, Warning adds up to 1432, and the other three songs are on their own. So you have a very progressive structure to the whole thing as well. So there you go. Finally, this is pretty much consensus. Everybody says this. It's the right answer. This is the album that invented heavy metal. There you go. Let us know in the comments below what you think of this show, what I've left out about this album that you think is important. Yeah, I'm usually in there reading the comments, lurking away, commenting as well. If you complain about me, that's usually pulls me out of my shell, and I comment back because I like arguing as well. So, but there you go. That is the album. Go check out our other episodes of this. You can join our Patreon. You can, we've got merch. You can subscribe. We've got a Ko-Fi as well. And yeah, my books are at martinpopoff.com. Check out my audio podcast as well, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. Go play some Black Sabbath.